I tell people all the time, it's hard for me to watch that catch on that picture on TV. So hang on. It's,
the Calcaterra catch, yeah.
News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is the unofficial 40 here on Soonerscoop.com podcast. Appreciate you guys being a part of it each and every week, and we welcome you to another edition. This one a little bit different because we wanted to have the full crew here. We tried to have the full crew here, but make some changes around the offices, got some internet issues.
I've banned Josh.
Bob now proclaiming that it's not technology,
get a kid in tow and start banning people. If you weren't there, you can't talk about it.
So I guess, Josh has been banned since he wasn't in Dallas with us, I guess. Is that the reasoning?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes. Let's go with that.
Plus, Bob hasn't had much sleep, so he doesn't really know what he's doing right now.
I would say, though, that because Josh wasn't at the Big 12 Media Days, I think he got the better end of it.
Yeah.
God, I hate Jerry World so much.
It's not about like Jerry World. It's not even about like bitching about having to work. It's so just meaningless. The whole thing.
It's always been this way, though.
I know.
It's not any different than it's ever been. I mean,
it's not. But it just it's
18
so
of these things.
It's unneeded nowadays.
Yeah,
is what I feel like.
I don't think so. I think
you have to go through it. It's like syllabus day.
You are being young. Angry man who is only focusing on the clickbaiters, the master clickbaiters that are there to try and get their headlines. And
that's all they're there for.
All this sea of hacks that have always surrounded this event.
No, they have.
You got to wade through them all to finally get to your stuff.
But there are some people that are writing some good stuff coming out of this thing. I mean, there's some people asking some good questions. But you have to wade through a bunch of bullshit. And people that are there doing their me thing, or that just don't know how to act or interrupt people in the middle of their questions or answers because they never show up to anything except Big 12 Media Days once a year.
Bringing their wives to the event?
Facebook Live and all that horse
What is
shit.
That? It's strange.
They're hacks. There's hacks all over the place, and they are intolerable, but that doesn't mean that the whole thing is worthless.
It's the first step into college football season.
There's my soapbox already.
It's the first step into college football season that you have to go through. And I guess it's kind of like the last day of school or the first day of school as far as syllabus go in college. Like, you have to go through it, and you have to be there because it is you can at least see the end of the tunnel, and the tunnel being the depths of hell being summer as we get ready for the start of the season.
Look, okay, here's an example of the ass hattery I'm on record. I've said this. I think the Big 12 Media Days needs a certain level of ass hattery. It needs some stupidity.
No, it does. The SEC has the fans that show up.
Just like the Super Bowl Media Day, it's all, like last year it was funny because the Barstool guys got thrown out. And it needs, so that adds
Well, can I get thrown out next year?
Not if you're working for us.
Yeah, what if I show up and just punch Mac Engel in the face?
You just need a fake credential.
Actually, I would a Mac Engel skerfuffle, whatever you want to call it.
I'll fight him in a cage match any day of the week.
Mac Engel, every time I go to Dallas and have something to do with Big 12, Mac Engel is always there, and he always writes something stupid.
Yeah, he succeeded in doing that.
It started with Baker Mayfield will ruin whatever NFL team drafts him at the first Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, they destroy the Frogs, and his column is after Baker Mayfield is going to be a big-time bust. It made no sense.
Do you see what this year's was?
You sent it to us, so I did see.
Slow down on the Lincoln Riley is genius talk, which I'm not saying is like completely stupid. I don't think it's stupid. Like, he has had obviously two historically good quarterbacks, but to say that he didn't have
responsible for developing them,
right? To say like he didn't have a part of it, and to say that I don't even know what the point of this article was this year. He's just such a douchebag.
Yeah, I didn't read it. I
It
just
gets
saw it.
under my skin that somebody could possibly think like he does. And then to know
He's an
that
irritant. I mean,
No, yeah, I know.
He's an old school irritant.
Oh, he got
columnist.
what he wanted. I tweeted out the link for him. I mean,
literally
he used me
thinks
as a
of-
pawn.
He literally thinks of the dumbest logical thing that you could write about and writes about it. It was like Bob Stoops. We went to his XFL thing.
Oh, yeah.
And Matt Gingle asked Bob Stoops, when is the other shoe going to drop? Like, Bob was like, what the hell are you talking about?
When you go on probation for everything that
Yes.
you did.
I mean, that's what Matt Gingle does.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only reason. And we're talking about him.
I know.
Are we
Oh,
talking
he
about really good journalists like Chuck Carlton and the work that they do? No.
I know.
Unfortunately.
He won.
See, you're letting these asshats win. That you're saying that they should shut down the Big 12 over this stuff, but all you're doing is talking about the asshats.
Because people have to know how stupid some of these people are. I think that's part of the deal. I know we'll get into plenty of Big 12 Media Day stuff, but I know that you just finished up speaking of Bob Stoops, you just finished up his autobiography, didn't you?
Yeah, I
Pretty
did. Good? No Excuses. I'm gonna do a little write-up on it. It was very good. I mean, it was...
Gene Wojciechowski wrote it, right?
Gene Wojciechowski wrote it. It's written in Bob's own words. There's a lot of quotes from different people throughout the book. There was a ton of Jason White quotes in that book, which kind of surprised me because Jason's a pretty private guy, but obviously with this book about Bob Stoops, he was willing to share. I would imagine Gene Wojciechowski spent a lot of time with Jason White building up some of these quotes.
Do you think we often forget how good Jason White was and what could have been type thing? I know that everybody always brings up
the guy won a Heisman Trophy.
I know.
No. I'm saying without two knees, he won a Heisman Trophy,
which tells you everything. I think that I just said about 10 times. It just shows you though.
Tridelt.
It just shows you though. I wish I was getting as much ass as they did.
Are they still?
I don't know.
Pretty high up on the food chain.
I don't know. There's documented racism in that house, so
yeah,
I don't know if I want to be that.
Well, that's one at the SAE thing. Was something that was talked about in the book.
In the book, that was a interesting period of Oklahoma football, just as far as. They were kind of losing it at the time, weren't they? I mean, as a whole, the program.
That was
like a downturn.
That's coming right off.
That was coming off the 8-4 year, 8-5, whatever it was. The firing of Josh Heupel, Lincoln Riley, just getting there, and that was the cool thing about the book is Bob takes you through everything. And I texted him after I read 3 chapters. I'm like, Bob, this is really good. This is amazing. And what I told him was, I said, look, I know all this stuff about you, but you're filling in all the gaps that I didn't know. And he said, exactly. That's why I was so, what did he say? I was so, not reticent isn't the word he used. But he didn't, he was kind of afraid to open up that way. It was hard for him to do.
Yeah.
I think in the book at one point, he says he doesn't know if he's an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. And he talks about that. He said, that it was, he names the year, I think it might have been after the Insight Bowl or whatever, where he decided, look, he wasn't going to fight being the public figure. I said, he said, that's why I was very reluctant to do it with an exclamation mark, because he was filling in all the gaps and things going on. And the thing that's really cool is it starts out, because you heard the stories about him and his dad watching game film on the projector that he'd project onto the TV, onto the refrigerator.
Yeah, it's like something straight out of a movie when you think about football families.
Yeah, but he talks about the neighborhood where he grew up in. He's got the Ray Mancini stuff in there, the neighborhood kids, what they used to do, what it was like growing up in Youngstown. Even goes through meeting Carol, meeting his wife. And it's really, it's almost, as much as it is about Bob Stoops, I think, you've always kind of wondered, you've seen Carol around and I've got to kind of talk to her more after he's retired. And she kind of explained, I remember talking to her one time and she said, I was a tomboy growing up. This stuff doesn't really faze me all that much, but it's kind of like a love letter to Carol Stoops in a lot of ways, because every big thing that happened in his life, she was kind of there to help push him, forward. And so he goes really into his family life, and he tells a lot of the stuff that you've heard him say before, but it's just the way he feels in the details with, the meeting he had with Rhett Bomar, the stuff. He goes into the Joe Mixon thing, which you really, I think with Bob Stoops and Joe Mixon, like, you just felt like that never really had any kind of closure to it. And in the book, it kind of is that way too. I mean,
well, it always seemed like, just from the outside looking in, it seemed like it was one of those things that, in a way, he was trying to change so much at that time because everything was changing around him as far as recruiting went. They had finally kind of made that social media, I don't know if push is the right word, but there was some.
They were figuring it out.
They were trying to figure it out in their own way.
Yeah.
And then you finally get Joe Mixon. We drive from New Orleans to San Antonio to cover the Mixon thing because it was such a big deal.
Yeah.
And 5 months later, we wake up on I think it was a Saturday morning, to the news that Joe Mixon knocked some lady out at a Pickleman's. I mean, my God. I
forgot Bob Stoops was at the ESPN car wash when that happened.
That's when it all came down?
Yeah.
So it was a Thursday night going into a Friday, maybe?
Yes.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and what was it, like a week and a half before the season started? I mean, it was right around this time of the year, wasn't
like
it?
July 24th-ish. Yeah.
Okay, so about a week.
Yep, that's when Mixon's birthday
It was the 25th when he heard about it, I think.
There had to have been something in the back of his mind, too, just as far as, the Mixon stuff. And, I honestly think that's one of the reasons that kind of pushed him out of college, was how everything that unfolded after that.
He goes into great detail about, when he made the decision, how it came down, who he told, when he told, when he told Joe, when he told President Bourne. He goes through the timeline of, when he played at Iowa. He talks about his career, which was really cool because he's not a guy that likes to talk about himself. So he never, like, the whole time he was at Oklahoma, I don't ever remember him other than when, they were going to play Iowa in the Insight Bowl. And the picture that showed up with him, jumping over a pile with playing Billy Sims when Iowa came. Like, that's as deep as he got with his playing career. But he really, in this book, talks very openly about who he was as a player, how he got recruited in high school, how, Iowa was the only offer that he had that was a really good offer. And then the coaching staff got fired, after he got there. And he talked about his dad, what he said to him when he wanted to quit. And it's just, I will say this. Here's the biggest thing I took out of that book. He got criticized so much for being too loyal. And because people felt like because of his loyalty, he couldn't make the right decisions and cut people loose when he had to move the program forward. And when you read the book, and you get a sense for what Bob Stoops was as a kid, as a teenager, as a football player in college, and then into the coaching profession, and just Youngstown and all that stuff. Like, Bob Stoops would, if he didn't value loyalty as much as he did, he never would have been at Oklahoma after they won the national championship. He would have gone back to Florida. But because of loyalty he felt towards Joe Castiglione and David Bourne, he probably stayed at Oklahoma longer than he should have.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of
so it's a two-way street. Like, yes, he was too loyal to guys like Bruce Kittle, and to
if he could go
Jay
back
Norvell,
and do it all
Josh
over
Heupel,
again, I'm sure that he would.
He'd do it the same way.
You think he would?
He'd do it all the same way.
Same thing with Kittle. I almost think that
maybe Kittle
might have just been something that
would be. He was roommates with Kittle,
right,
at Iowa too,
right.
That was just a bad. That was a bad.
It was never going to work. It was never going to happen.
But I mean, what I'm trying to say is, you got what you gave what you got, or you got what you gave. With Bob, like, you couldn't have one without the other.
Sure,
he was loyal to Oklahoma, but he was also loyal to his people that he hired.
Well, it takes a special kind of stupid to sit around and talk negatively about a guy that basically I mean, the history is going to show that Bob Stoops was, just as important as anybody to the University of Oklahoma, especially the football program.
Well, and even in the way he left. I mean, he could have stayed and played that out with Baker coming back.
Yeah, sure.
And he wanted Lincoln Riley to have it set up for success right away and to jumpstart recruiting. He goes into great detail in the book about, why he did that, why he made the decisions that he did. So it's just I'm going to do a write-up. It comes out September 10th. And we'll have a pre-order link up when I put that article up. But yeah, I would say if you're a subscriber to SoonersScoop.com, if you listen to this podcast, you want to read this book. It's only like 280 pages. To me, I love Bootlegger's Boy by Barry Switzer. I'm going to read that again. But it's very similar. It's like it shows you the very inner workings of who those guys are.
There's 3 incidents. Like you got Bomar, Mixon, retirement. Which one did you learn the most about?
Oh, I would say Mixon. There's more detail on that. I mean, the Bomar was pretty nuts and bolts. I mean, you can tell it was probably something he didn't want to go into. The Heupel thing, the firing of Heupel, was really intriguing. What I took out of it most is I never realized how much Bob relished that win over Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. To this day, he relishes the hell out of that win. And it's because of the fighting that got started and all the criticism, the Feinbaum and, the SEC, ain't shit, basically. That's the other thing. Bob says shit a lot in his book. It's great.
Can we get an audio version with
I
Bob?
hope so.
They need
Bob
to.
saying that?
They
On
absolutely
Amazon,
have
I
to.
looked the pre-order. It has an audio. Bob better be reading that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, anybody that remembers, God, it seems like it was just yesterday, but 6 years ago now, they had no business being on the same field as that Alabama team.
By the way, he devotes an entire chapter, and I talk about this with some of the older guys I'm on the radio with. Like, as I get older, I get more emotional about things. He devotes an entire chapter to the children's hospital, and it is amazing.
Well, I don't think
truly
that people,
amazing.
I don't think people realize how often he was. I don't know if he still does it, and I think he does. I think you hear about it every once in a while, but I don't think people realize how much time he spends over there. I'm not trying to like kiss his ass or anything, but
it's unbelievable.
He is over there a lot more than like just because OU doesn't put out pictures doesn't mean he's not there.
Well, and the reasoning behind why he developed that relationship is a part of the book too, and it has to do with his daughter and some things that she went through, which was always kind of a big. We didn't pry too much into that, but it kind of unravels that whole thing too, which is really cool. So.
Very cool. It's going to be a
better
must
than
read.
Media Days. That is better than
Yeah,
Media
it's going to be a must read.
Okay, so Media Days, we were down in Dallas. We did. I mean, the great thing about Media Days is you have the breakout sessions, so
Yes.
you get to spend a lot of time with Lincoln Riley and the other players. And Eddie and I had a really interesting. We dominated for a while on Neville Gallimore's podium with some really interesting stuff. Okay, so like Jalen Hurts wasn't there, and this was something that I kind of tried to explain to people as it went along. But first off, I just kind of asked Lincoln Riley, like, hey, you're kind of missing a guy here, right? What's going on? Lincoln, I know that you want to, you understand events like this are generating attention for your team and your conference. Because of that, did you think at all about bringing Jalen, maybe just because you knew everybody wanted to talk to him?
No, not really. I mean, I from a team leadership standpoint, it would have made sense. But I just felt like, Jalen's in a quarterback battle, and he's really done a phenomenal job becoming a leader on this team in such a short amount of time. And I've got a tremendous respect for what he's accomplished in his career up to this point. But, I just felt like some of the guys that had been here with us, that had played for us here before, it was a little more appropriate.
That was, he kind of shot it out. He's like, no, I didn't really. I mean, to me, what I heard was, no, I didn't really think about bringing him.
Are we supposed to be surprised by this?
Yeah, that's not surprising when you look at he didn't bring Kyler Murray last year, and he brought Trevor Knight the 1 year when Baker was a starter.
Here's my point in this whole thing. It's like you get this thing where people in the media are like, why is he being such a jerk? Just admit that Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback. And I'm just the media. I'm not talking Red fans. Like, it's like, he's lying to the public. He's just tell the truth. We know Jalen Hurts is your starting quarterback. And that's the thing about it is like, what I took from that answer is there's a process. There's a process in becoming a starter, not just at quarterback, but any position. And if you're a transfer, think about it. Don't think about it as a quarterback. Think about it as let's say a safety, because that's more of an open position. But if you're a highly thought of transfer as a safety, and you're coming in there and you've just had a guy that's graduated that was an All-American, and you have unproven people behind him, you're initially going to think, okay, well, that guy's going to end up being the starter. I mean, that just makes sense. But you can't just bring that safety in and after 15 practices, when he doesn't really know your defense, have him automatically named the starter above a kid that spent 2 years learning the system, that people think have promise, that had other offers and interests coming out of high school. Like, that looks bad. It makes everyone else on the team say, well, shit, he just gave him a job. I mean, when did we start giving jobs away? Because I watched him in the spring, and I know there were practices where Tanner Mordecai looked better than Jalen Hurts. I believe that to be true. And even in a scrimmage, I believe that to be true. So it's not like for 15 practices, Tanner Mordecai looked like trash and Jalen Hurts looked like an All-American. I mean, you can imagine Jalen Hurts probably struggled a little bit early.
Sure.
Trying to learn the system. He's probably thinking a little too much. He was running an offense he's never run before. So you can't just, because everyone knows deep down inside that he's the best choice, and at the end of the season he'll be a better quarterback, that he should be that. You can't do it that way. You have to go through the process. So not just the quarterbacks, but the safeties and the defensive backs and the linebackers and the running backs, everybody understands these are competitions. You have to win them. You have to win a job. It's not just handed to you.
Well, if you want to put a true spin on it, you could say, like, you fans should be happy that this is the way it plays out, shouldn't they? I mean, at least Lincoln Riley's sticking to something. He's sticking to somewhat of a game plan on how he runs a team. And that's, in a way, I think it's kind of commendable in today's time that he sticks to it and doesn't give in to the quote-unquote pressure that maybe the media would put on somebody.
It shows that he's a little old school.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
he believes in the values that people like Bob Stoops believe in.
Yeah.
And we heard Jalen Hurts say that time and time again during the spring, too, that nothing was promised to him. Mm-hmm. And everyone's, that's just lip service. He's going to be the starter. And you know what? More evidence toward that.
CeeDee Lamb thinks he's going to be the starter. I'm sure Jalen Hurts thinks he's going to be the starter. I mean,
well, I've talked to Gabe about this. Like, every guy that goes into practice or every guy that works out with a team, they have an idea though of who the guy's going to be. Yeah. Like, there's no secret out there, or at least I don't think there is.
But then again, it's not just about naming the starter too. It's what if the unthinkable happens? What if Jalen Hurts gets hurt? I mean, do you want Tanner Mordecai going through the entire fall camp, not being engaged, not trying to play and learn the system as much as he can?
Or Spencer Rattler.
I
don't know if this is true. I saw something on the board this morning. Dan Patrick was talking about, like, he thinks Spencer Rattler is going to be the starter by the end of the season. God, did you guys catch any of that?
I have not, but
I didn't know it's take season. I mean,
it 100% is, but that'd be incredible.
I don't think there's anybody that told Dan Patrick that, though.
No. And it might just be more of a 5-star type thing.
He
looking at the roster and saying.
He might be friends with an Alabama fan.
They were basically, I think, comparing it to Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence a year ago is how the discussion started.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Almost like Jalen Hurts is just a placeholder until this guy gets ready is basically, I think, how the conversation started. I didn't listen to it.
Lincoln would be a cold-hearted bastard to do that to Jalen Hurts again. After he went through two, like, Jalen Hurts would never be able to trust another man again if that happened to him. I mean,
the most shocking
for it to
thing.
happen, he would have to suck, like really suck.
Yeah, suck
like,
or get hurt.
Everyone would have to say, like, Jalen, this just didn't work out.
Yeah.
And this team has probably lost a lot of games and wouldn't even be in the Big 12 hunt.
The whole thing is interesting, and then you have on the other side of it, basically Lincoln Riley having to, and even Neville Gallimore to an extent, and Kenneth Murray's in the same boat, basically defending the idea of why this defense isn't going to suck anymore.
That was,
aren't we at the point, even 45 days before kickoff, like, there is nothing that can be said right now that is going to make a tackle or create a turnover or who knows what.
They talk about turnovers being emphasized like crazy. It doesn't mean anything in July. Exactly.
Let's go to the Lincoln Riley defensive question parade, as we heard this week in Arlington.
A lot of things do. Our old leadership and just kind of I've seen that group now, for the last 3 or 4 years, and I like where they're at mentally right now. I do. I think they're very bought in with Alex, the new system, the new mentality. I like how they're leading. I think they've got that edge that they know this is their time. You just feel it kind of. I really like our young talent. It's still young. It's still got to develop. It's not anointed by any stretch of imagination, but there's some really exciting pieces. And then both Alex, but really just how that entire defensive coaching staff has come together. Not a lot of people have talked about it, but when you take, some new guys, some holdovers, that doesn't always mesh. We had to do the same thing at East Carolina, and that even happened offensively when we came in here in 2015. Bill and Jay and Kale, and then throw Dennis and I in the mix, and then a couple years later throw Shane in the mix, and that's got to work. And I've been really happy with how that's gone with our defensive staff so far.
Now, there's one thing that I think we should celebrate this week, and that is
no Title IX investigations.
Somehow, somehow, the departure of Russell Westbrook is coinciding with the rise of Barry Trammell.
There's something poetic about that. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that he's stupid.
Barry Trammell showed up Monday at Big 12 Media Days in one of the best looking sport coats I've seen.
I literally told him, I think you were sitting there, I was going to give him $300 for it.
Well, he was so impressed by that he even mentioned your name on our morning show.
All right. Oh, competition.
Yes.
That's funny.
And he said that your offer was nowhere near what he paid for that coat.
I kind of thought that's what he meant when he told me where he bought it. And it didn't register until an hour later.
Super haberdashery place like in San Diego or something.
Yes.
You buy anything at Coronado, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And it didn't dawn on me until like an hour later. And I was like, I think that's what he meant. So I wasn't trying to shortchange him.
No, but between that and then this next question, which I thought won the day. I thought this question won the day with Lincoln Riley, that it was to the point, it's what everyone thought. It was well executed. I hope this is the right soundbite. I'll just play it for you.
Do you ever let yourself daydream, or that's the wrong word, but think about if your defense can play up to your standards and what you think is their potential? You ever think about how good of a football machine you would have?
Yeah, no, that's the big picture vision. I mean, without a question. I mean, that's, it's not always going to marry up every single year like that, but there's no doubt that, you feel like you could put something like that together, and we feel like we're going to, that, we've already been pretty tough to beat, but I think we'd be, it's going to be even tougher, and I feel like that's coming.
Which, I mean, there were going to be plenty of questions about the defense. There were. We played the clip earlier. They said, what kind of expectations does he have for the defense? And, recruiting with Alex Grinch, I think, is something he feels really good about. And that was another thing that he talked about.
Yeah, very, very much like he is as a coach. He's a hard-working recruiter. It's very, very important to him. very detailed, and I think he brings. These players know who he is. They know what he's accomplished and how highly he's thought of within this profession. So, we go prove it on the field. Then it's already getting better, and I think we go prove it on the field. Then I think the same thing will happen there as what's happened offensively in the last 4 years.
You mentioned that.
Now, the other thing that was brought up was what Alex Grinch thinks about his defense, and the quote that
I missed that.
Sam Speaks had from Joshua Eaton that we ran in the Bryson Washington commitment story, and I don't think Lincoln was too happy that we had that quote. And actually, he denied that was ever said to a recruit.
Coach, speaking of Coach Grinch, when he said there wasn't any NFL talent on the defense, how did the team take that?
Well, he didn't say that, so they didn't really take it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it something similar to that, though?
No. He had a conversation with a recruit that, like anything in this world, you say one thing, and then he says one thing to a reporter, and then a reporter doesn't have anything to say. Right. Writes it some way, and that's what happened. That's what you guys did. No, I didn't mean that. I think very simply making a point that everybody here is going to have a chance to come in and compete, and it's not like we got a defense with a bunch of guys having jobs sewn up, and you want to come do it. We're trying to bring in as much NFL talent as we possibly can, and which is the truth, So. No, Alex has a big part of the reason he took this job, because he's smart enough to know, that he knows what our expectations are, and he's got the same expectations. That's why it fit. But you're not going to go take a job you don't think there's any players there. Trust me, he had his pick. So this is we got the players we want, and we want to keep. Of course, we want to keep getting them better like anybody else. But that's about where it's at.
When he's talking to us, I don't know if unfiltered is the right word, but he's a straight shooter.
Yep.
Does that only work when your players know exactly where they stand?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because if you're saying one thing to the media and you're not even telling the players that, then they see through you pretty quick. So yeah, he's very transparent. That's him. He's that way. He's that way in a staff room. He's that way with players, media. I mean, that's just he is who he is, which I think that's key. You got to be your own person.
Now, I don't know exactly what he was saying there about reporters, and it sounded like he said don't have anything better to do, or it was kind of jumbled up. It was
almost like he wanted to.
It was definitely a double.
It's almost like he wanted to go full Mulshoe on it and fake news us.
Yeah.
And then he was like, I'm going to quickly backstep from that. And basically, by the end of the quote, and after you asked him, it's like, yeah, he might have said that somewhat.
I think he said a version of that. Yeah.
Sure.
Because Bob, you know this. I don't know how many times I have to say this. The guy said he wanted to tattoo the number 129 on every one of his players because that was their past, defense ranking last year. And he also basically, has said things similar to that. I mean, he has said on more than one occasion that there's no one that's locked up a job on this defense, and any freshman can come in and take a job. He said any walk-on could come in and take a job.
And it could be phrased this way, that based on how all of them have played, none of them have earned a right to be looked at the next level. Now, that's not saying that guys like Trey Brown, like Neville Gallimore, like Kenneth Murray couldn't put it together after this season and be considered in that scope of conversation. But as of right now, based on what they have produced, none of them would deserve a second look.
There has to be a little bit too of a little prod in the side. I mean, you're not shit until you do something for me.
It's such a weird dynamic because Mike Stoops leaves here and everyone got so upset, going back to that Baylor game and Julian Wilson and the screaming at him on the sideline and like, oh, how dare Mike Stoops do that? But everyone had a problem with it because they hated Mike Stoops. But now you've got Alex Grinch. I'm telling you, he's just as intense as Mike Stoops ever was. And he's going to yell at players, and he's going to be down on the field, and he's going to get people saying he might grab a face mask. I don't know.
But if people like his system, they'll blame it more on the players. What they hate about that Baylor game, of course, they played so far off. And nothing changed.
And then Mike Stoops was yelling at the players.
There's a lot of things that have happened
but
in the last 6 years that it's like, God damn it. Like, if I was a coach, why wouldn't you fix this.
Exactly.
I think I've had my own meltdowns before.
If you see Grinch is adapting and adjusting and trying to actually implement what he's looking to do, he just doesn't have the players, then I think the fault's going to be, oh, wait a minute, none of these players we brought in were actually worth a damn.
The thing is, look, Grinch is intense. He's demanding. He's straightforward. He tells you what's on his mind. He is not there to sugarcoat anything, and he doesn't. And he's trying to set a tone, set an attitude with the defense, and that's what he was brought in to do, was to not change the attitude, but just be a different voice.
And I can see that talking with Kenneth Murray. It sounded like he's been told the last couple of years, maybe a little bit what he's doing wrong, but so much of what he's doing right and the potential that he still has. When he was talking about what Grinch and Odom have brought to the table, constructive criticism is like the number one thing. He's like, I'm hearing it a heck of a lot more.
He's not getting babied.
I thought it was interesting just as far as kind of what you asked him, Bob, about him, if he had talked to Tim Kish. And, I mean, they had a really good relationship, obviously, when he was at Oklahoma. And it was just kind of interesting. It was almost kind of like, I love Coach Kish, but I'm being coached now, is basically,
well, and you know what?
If you read between the lines what he was saying.
What I kind of think that could have been going on there, too, is Kish knew that Mike was insane on the field, I'm saying. And maybe he was always the good cop to Mike's bad cop.
No, I think he was. I think there was a lot of that.
And because of that, the linebacker position wasn't coached as hard as other positions.
There's only one good cop on that defense right now, if I had to guess.
Yes, Ruffin.
He's not the new guy.
And they don't give him a whole lot of players to coach.
No.
He coaches a position that really isn't even on the team.
Right. It's just, I don't know. I'm as excited as anybody else to see what this thing's going to look like, and I think it's going to be, I mean, when do we make the transition into talking about the Eric King and what Houston brings to an offense? I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think it's not the easy opener that you want, but it's something that I think that, looking back on it, if you win the game and get away out of there without injuries, it's going to be something that they will go back and say, this prepared us for the Big 12.
By the way, you mentioned Kenneth Murray. Lincoln Riley was asked what his expectations are of Kenneth Murray this year.
They're high. It's been a cool journey with him, basically starting as a true freshman because he had to. He certainly would have played, but I mean, having to play the amount of snaps he did, a little bit out of position, honestly, that first year. Last year, much more settled in, really had a strong year for us, but I think there's very much a sense around our program and from Kenneth individually that we all know he can play a lot better, and that's exciting. And especially when you have the type of kid that you do with him, as far as a guy that loves the game, takes working at his craft very, very seriously, extremely dedicated to it. And so you just know that progress is going to continue to come. And then I'm excited to see his skill set with what Coach Grinch and his staff are implementing, because I think it's going to be a great fit.
And then the one other thing on defense I want to talk about before we move on is you guys mentioned NFL talent. Neville Gallimore was one of the names that you brought up. Is there anyone that even in the last 2 weeks, that more people's eyes have been opened about what they have in Neville Gallimore? If they saw like Benny Wiley's Insta stories,
sure,
knowing that Bruce Feldman ranked him as the number 2 player on his freaks,
it's a little surprising.
List. And then you find out he runs a 4.76 40. Like, there is so, like, I didn't know some of that stuff. Like, I was so shocked, like, and he's lost so much weight. I mean, he's slimmed down. Like, he legitimately has the skill set of a Tommy Harris, Gerald McCoy.
His thing is
at Oliver freshman year,
at least to me.
Maybe not there yet.
Yeah,
I mean, he's an elite of the elite in terms of athletics.
His last couple of years is when he gets hurt, he falls off.
Yeah,
he doesn't play well hurt.
He has never been consistent.
So he has to be 100% because you see that in the beginning of each season. He looks dominant, and he kind of tails off as he wears down, and he never gets back to 100%. Now, he's told me this is the lightest he's been since being a junior in high school. So we'll
incredible.
See if that makes any sort of difference. But when he's healthy, he's incredible. He's got to learn to be able to handle the grind the entire season instead of sort of fading away.
It's just a little bit different, and I guess just because I go through every clip that I have down from the field, and you got to label them and go through all that jazz during the summer, and it seems like I always find myself looking back and thinking, God, he made a lot of plays, but it's so inconsistent. And I think that's probably, obviously he goes into, a year that's going to be a make or break year for him at OU. And I think that it's just interesting to think if they could get a guy that contributes and could be consistent, the type of guy that I think a lot of people think Neville Gallimore could be. What a major addition that would be for whoever's the defensive coordinator.
Let me play you this with Lincoln Riley real quick, and then I had one more thing I wanted to add on Neville.
Yeah, just the explosiveness he plays with. He's very, very difficult to single block. I mean, even for our really good players last year, he's a difficult matchup. And anybody knows you start having a guy in there, you got a double team. Kind of like the cat we played against Alabama last year. I mean, that was such a factor in the game, was us having to double team him so much. I mean, it just, I think the guy had, I think 1 or 2 tackles in the game, and he totally changed the game. I mean, a great interior defensive lineman does that. They don't necessarily always have the impact of their game measured in the stats, but he's extremely explosive, and he's learning to do that more consistently. He's learning to do that against different styles, different blocking schemes, different techniques, and so he's just kind of that real talented player that's starting to really become a complete football player, and we're pretty excited about that.
The thing about Neville Gallimore is what we talked about, and people get this is kind of one of my big pet peeves about like off-season talk. It's like I think someone even asked Lincoln I think it was a local yard bird, but they're like, Lincoln, moving to one gap scheme, how much is that going to help Neville? Stop it with that shit. You've been doing that shit forever. They're in too much of a read and rack defense. They need to play, one technique instead of zero technique, and it's like. People think that makes them Vince Lombardi to talk about gaps and schemes with defensive linemen. And people have been bitching and moaning about gaps and schemes for the last 5-6 years on a defensive line. How many goddamn defensive linemen has OU put in the NFL? I mean, in that time. No, when you have Tommy Harris, you have Dusty Dvorak, you have Gerald McCoy, you have Jordan Phillips, those fucking guys are going to go play in the NFL.
They were dudes.
No matter what scheme or what gap they were playing in, whether read, react, you don't think stop it with that bullshit.
You don't think it mattered how many gaps Charles Walker was covering?
Neville Gallimore, I like that. Neville Gallimore has been inconsistent as a player. No matter, he's been a guy that hasn't been able to play through injury. People have questioned his toughness. People have questioned his commitment. He's from Canada. I mean, it's like, it's like, is this racist? No, that's nationalist. I mean, it is a nationality thing. It's not an ethnicity thing. But people see people from Canada and they think they're soft because they're from Canada.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Nice, Bob. That was a good one.
Very good. So, I mean, look, Neville Gallimore is going to be really good if he matures mentally. He's got a ton of athletic ability, a ton more than I thought that he did. So stop it with this, he's in a better scheme this year. No matter what happens, it has nothing to do, has very little to do with the scheme versus his mental toughness, his mentality, how he plays the game, all that. I mean, that's a much bigger factor for him.
Well said.
Soapbox number 2.
Well said. No, I think that there's a lot to that, though. I really do.
Okay, another, I think, key thing that had to be addressed at Big 12 Media Days, besides the who the starting quarterback is how Lincoln is going to handle Spencer Rattler coming in as a true freshman.
Lincoln, is there a different approach you have to have when you have I don't know, a highly touted young quarterback coming in that hasn't played at the college level? Is there, you have to manage his expectations a little bit more? I mean, is it just different in a way, maybe?
I don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, we've had good players in that room before that weren't necessarily the starter. And so I think you just got to keep them focused on getting better and getting as good as they can get, because each player, at the end of the day, that's what they want. I mean, they want to get as good as they possibly can. And then, then it's their confidence in their abilities that if they get to that point, somebody's going to have a hard time beating them out. And so you go recruit a guy that you think has that much ability, you have that, you believe in them, they believe in themselves that much, and then it's just a race to see how quickly you can get them good. And so I think try to keep the focus on the race. And then there's been a good example in our room for anybody that some good patience in that room has tended to be pretty well rewarded.
And this is, other than Chris Robinson, going to be Lincoln's, superstar high school recruit.
Well, if you want to, if you really want to go down that road, you can say that he kind of needs to hit on Spencer Rattler, right? I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to be a bust or anything.
With the 2020 situation, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
And you need him not to do anything stupid.
Yeah, sure.
He doesn't exactly have a clean record coming in.
Sure.
And I'm not judging the kid, but that's the truth.
No,
those are the facts of the case.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Still really pumped about QB1 and when it's going to come out.
I haven't seen anything as far as like a release date or anything.
I know. Did Last Chance U come out?
No, I don't think so.
It's getting ready to. It should
be,
though.
I would think, in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Maybe even 3 weeks.
So is our pod making QB1?
I hope so.
I don't know. I never heard back from them, and I didn't want to be like, so did we make the cut? Like, I don't want to be that guy. We'll just watch it and find out, I guess. But we signed the release that they sent us.
I hope so. I hope it's something really negative too.
Like the Spencer Rattler will refuse to talk to any representatives of Sooner Scoop for the rest of his career.
That'd be really funny. We could make a peace offering.
I mean, I remember going back. I mean, they're not going to put our typical, stuff in there, our really crass stuff, because they'd look bad.
Never know.
I don't think we said anything that crass.
I don't think so either. Treated the kid pretty good.
But yeah, I mean, you need him to be happy. You need him to develop. I'm sure he thinks he's going to come in here and win the starting job. But you have to think like he stood up next to Jalen Hurts and just been like, yeah, I don't look like this guy.
As much as Rattler
got to be a little intimidating.
Put on weight like crazy in the spring, he still doesn't.
It's not Jalen Hurts weight.
It's not Jalen Hurts. It's not elite college football quarterback level weight just yet.
Bet he wears the OU gear, though.
Oh, who doesn't?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, jeez.
Well,
they
just
had
don't
a
see the
video
pictures
out
of it
today about him meeting a kid, Yeah.
And
he didn't have OU. He had a Houston Texans shirt on.
Really?
He's had Texans. He's had Astros. He's representing Houston.
He had Bills the day we were out.
Maybe he's going to throw the first game of the year for the University of Houston,
and then transfer.
That'd be gold.
Transfer to 1AA.
Transfer back to Alabama just as a student. Start his coaching career, just like his dad.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things with a freshman. You don't know what his expectations are.
I would imagine
once he gets out there practicing.
By September 7th, you're going to have an idea. He's going to play against South Dakota.
Right.
I mean, I think the worst scenario would be if he goes out there right away, picks everything up, and looks amazing. Like, then you're like,
and he's like really, really good.
Yeah, you're like, shit, what do I do now?
Well, I mean, that's...
Tanner Mordecai stops even showing up for games. He's just like, I got nothing, guys. I got nothing.
By the way, can I tell you this, that when I was standing with Lincoln Riley, there were 4 Tanner Mordecai questions.
That's not bad.
I will say there was 2. I think there was 2.
I think there were 5
TV stations
total,
from Waco, though. So
well, that's what it was. It was like they wanted to know about Tanner Mordecai and Jaquaylin Crawford
and Parrish Cobb, and Lincoln Riley was like, "You'll have to ask Waco. What is that? McClellan County." Detention
the
center.
warden.
I heard he has made a really strong push, though, to start on the intramural team.
The prisoners versus guards.
In Stephenville.
It'd be Huntsville.
Huntsville.
Take
That's
him
right.
down to Huntsville.
That's right. Huntsville. I don't know if he is in prison. He might be.
Yeah, he's going to federal pound me in the ass prison. He's not getting a halfway house. I mean, didn't he get caught robbing in Norman too?
Yeah, it was multiple.
Yes.
Yeah.
And multiple state felonies. Something to aspire to, kids.
Ooh, I hope he doesn't get out now that I said that he's going to federal pound me in the ass prison.
Put some new locks on this house. He already knows how to break into things down here.
Oh my God, LJ Moore and Parrish Scott are gonna now make a super team to just murder us.
I mean, I'd be like, yeah, you can rob me, but at least give me some meth and a round with the girl, you know?
There have been some spectacular flameouts in the secondary here.
No, there have been. They need to. I mean, it can't get any worse though. I feel like I've said that the last couple of years about OU defensively, but it can't get any worse. I refuse to believe it can get any worse than it was a year ago, and they still made a college football final. Playoff.
Would you like the dumbest question from a UT perspective to Lincoln Riley this week?
It's just going to trigger me, but
I've been
go ahead.
very scared to click it. You sent it. I have not clicked it yet.
You haven't looked at it?
I did not want to.
I titled it Lincoln Bad
Yep.
UT question. It was someone that was looking for a clickbait article like really hard.
Coach, your representatives, were you ever contacted when you had East Carolina by Texas?
No.
Would you have had any interest at that time in the Texas job if you had been contacted? You can decline to comment.
I better decline that one. Yeah, that was a slippery slope for me, brother.
No, that's fine. So, just as an offensive mind.
Did he call him Bubba? Did he call him Bubba?
I don't know. But let me ask you this:
if you get called Bubba in an interview session, that's worse than being called Chief.
Did I miss like some? Was there some rumor out there floating around that Texas tried to hire Lincoln while he was at ECU, but they didn't? Like, what kind of dark web is this guy hanging out on? What kind of dark web UT message board form is this? Like hornfans.nz or something? Like,
I just don't know what that
is this like a
leads to.
message board that's actually on a what do they call those movie servers?
Give me all the thought, though, of somebody out there trying to write an article that says this is why Texas should have hired Lincoln Riley.
I imagine that guy writing like fan fiction, like alternate universe, like multiverse, the UT multiverse. Like,
is Charlie Strong ever the coach in his fanfic?
In this fanfic, what if Texas had gone to ECU and hired Lincoln Riley? Like, my God.
He rolled with it. He was like, okay.
I don't know where that guy. Okay. I wish I knew where that guy was from that asked that question. I don't know if. Okay, was that worse?
Was that the guest to Charles Whitman?
Was that worse, or was it excited guy asking loud questions about Baker Mayfield's wedding? I'll let you decide.
Hey, so Coach, did you go to Baker's big wedding over the weekend?
Yeah, we got to go out there. Yeah, had a good time.
How was it?
It was good. Yeah, good, fun moment. Fun to be able to share that with them. Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you get him for a wedding present?
Somebody asked me that earlier randomly. I don't know. My wife got it, I'm sure. I don't have any idea. I got him a hug and a good picture at the wedding. So, and I helped him win a Heisman, so that was my wedding present. So, actually, he did about 99% of it. But no, it was good. It was fun to the life experience of those guys, not just what we do on the field with them. So, fun to be a part of that.
Is it just me, or does that sound like Dale Gribble from King of the Hill? The guy asking the question.
Hey, so Coach, did you go to Baker's big wedding over the weekend?
Maybe a little bit. I can just envision this old asking that question, though. Jesus.
That's definitely an old guy.
Oh, my God. Nobody cares about what you're going to write in the Abilene whatever. I'm just making up a name. I don't know.
You know the Russians have that guy's dick pics.
Probably. He probably already did the old-time face thing.
Yeah.
Now they got all your information. Just the worst. It really is the worst.
See, like you're getting triggered. Like, that's funny. Like, I'm here for this. Like, it was an hour and a half, Eddie. Like, what do you want? We got a lot of really good stuff. You know what we did get that we didn't release immediately just because we knew it would trigger Blaine Brown? Hey, Blaine, how you doing, man? Was Lincoln Riley's
kicker
assessment of the kicker situation.
Yeah, shockingly, it took like 5.5 hours for me to be asked that question. That's one of the bigger ones there is for our team right now. I mean, Austin Seibert was phenomenal for us, and it's definitely going to be more by committee this year. You know, we won't have one guy doing it all, but Gabe Burkich, Callum Sutherland, the two guys really looking at it, the place kicking and the kickoff position, and then Reeves Munchausen is really, I think, kind of certainly got the inside track on the punting job. He had a phenomenal spring, has really taken some big strides. We thought he was a really talented kid coming out, and he's started to show that. So, but, these guys don't have the game experience that Austin had, and they're going to have to go prove it. We're confident. We like the group, but you've had such a security blanket there with Austin for the last several years that, we're excited to see these guys kind of have their opportunity and take it.
Oh, man, that was solid journalism there. Not like this.
Hey, so Coach, did you go to Baker's big wedding over the weekend?
Yeah.
Which one is dumber? Kickers on July 15th? Or did you go to Baker's big wedding over the weekend? What'd you get him?
I don't know. Probably the wedding question, because it's none of his damn business. Is first off how it should start.
Baker's a public figure. That's more than reasonable.
Was about as private as you can get. I almost wonder if they told people not to tweet pictures and stuff.
Did you like the Switzer story at least?
Switzer story was solid. That's an all-timer.
Here it is.
So we get to the restaurant. We're having a great dinner. I'm laughing. He's telling stories. We're talking about, we had great mutual connection in Donnie and talking about OU. And so it starts to get pretty late, and, we got a bottle of wine open there, and I think it's some of his wine actually. And, so we're moving through that, and it gets to be like 10 o'clock. I finally said, Coach, man, this is awesome. I can't believe this, but I got to go. I have a 5:30 workout in the morning. It's my first official team deal at OU. He's like, it's like 5:30. He grabs his phone out and calls Bob, starts ripping Bob for having. He's like, why are you having a 5:30 a.m. workout? Well, he ain't going to be there. That's what he tells me. Well, thanks, Barry. He's got me fired. I ain't even been through one workout yet. So it was the best. So now we've had a great relationship. It's been fun to get to know him. He's been very open, accessible for me, and he's been awesome.
Did you make the workout?
Oh yeah, I made it. Yeah, I made it. I was a little foggy, but I was there. Where were you?
Switzer getting people drunk.
Pretty good. That's an all-time Barry Switzer story.
That was pretty good. So, I mean, outside of Lincoln, like day 2, you guys booked it back after Eddie had another TV appearance, famous Eddie. Everybody wanted to talk. You actually preceded day 2, talking Horns Up for Peace with
knew exactly what was coming.
Who would have known?
But day 2 becomes all about the horns down. Like, that is so
I can't
weak
believe
sauce.
that it's 2019 and we're talking about this. It is wild to me that that is a storyline out of Big 12 Media Day.
And the major storyline.
It's the number one storyline.
It's because it's being enabled by the media, which I find troubling. But I mean,
there's people out there that think like it's a big deal. Like, there are people out there that think that like OU players shouldn't be able to do it.
Like, if Lincoln Riley did wear a Beat Texas hat like Barry Switzer once did, would Tom Herman demand a penalty flag be thrown?
And I mean, there's people out there that think that this is part of they're like, oh, Texas is just in these people's heads. No, they're not.
They're just soft.
It's fucking stupid that we're sitting here talking about this. And not that we're talking about it, but that it's just
they spent a whole day you're mad at the freaking, stupid question people for Lincoln Riley, but that's even worse.
That's what I said when I got here. I'm glad we weren't there Tuesday. I would have went nuts if that line of questioning kept coming up.
It's just crazy to me. It is crazy to me that this is where we are in society, that you can't do a hand gesture, like something that, God forbid.
Can I just
God
throw this out there?
forbid these kids live in a world where the R word is used, and the R word being rivalry.
Okay, so for people that maybe haven't caught on, for people that kind of got it from the beginning, can you explain the mission of Horns Up for Peace?
To highlight how fucking stupid the people in Austin are. Like, get over yourself.
I think some people just wanted to hear that from you, like that you're making fun of people in Austin.
It's
because I think some people they didn't understand it. Like,
there are a lot of people that don't quite get it.
They don't get it.
That's just funny to me. Like I'm not going to explain it to anybody.
You speak Eddie. There's a language that we kind of understand it because we're used to it, but some people are incapable of speaking Eddie.
How dumb do you have to be to not get what's going on? If you watch the video, 4 out of 5 children are affected by it. It's not childhood cancer. Come on. It's just so ridiculous that that's where we are.
If we could get, well, I don't even get into that, but we need to get like a Sally Struthers campaign going too.
I don't know what that is.
Where kids are kicked out of their homes for showing the horns down sign, and
25 cents a day.
Feed these
25
homeless
cents a day
children
can feed them.
that have been kicked out of their, Texas Longhorn homes.
We could probably do something like that. It might be an idea here moving forward.
We need just a staff of volunteers willing to carry out our ridiculous.
I was gonna tape a thing yesterday, with a victim impact panel type thing, and then I decided I don't know, that just seems so wrong.
In this time, with things going on right now. The bad thing is you do that, you take it that far, and some real tragedy happens, and then you just look kind of stupid.
It's kind of like writing a blog about a missing girl, and then she ends up dead 5 hours later.
Yeah.
You get fired from Barstool. But it never ceases to amaze me the amount of stupid that's out there on Twitter. And believe me, I'm right in the middle of it.
It's getting dumber.
I like
every
being
day,
in the
too.
mud, but God, there are some which reminds me, I need to tweet some people.
We've had some interesting reactions even on the Sooner
You know
Scoop
what
page.
it is, right? All these olds are funneling in from Facebook.
Oh, I've been telling you that forever.
It's just somebody's got to put a stop to it.
Pretty soon those grandkids grow up and you're sick of seeing them. You're like, I need something better to do.
No kidding.
Because I'm tired of getting my Tom Herman sucking on a pacifier meme 3 days late.
Yeah, no kidding.
Have you seen that one?
Yes. There's stuff that gets funneled through Facebook that it's like, that was pretty funny when it was on Twitter 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Now it's not.
Some people aren't that social.
I guess not.
Okay, so, day 2 was just ridiculous. And all that, we played the Tom Herman thing at the beginning where he got distracted because they were showing the one-handed Grant Calcaterra catch on the Jumbotron. But, outside of that, what really stood out to you guys? If there's one thing that stood out to you guys about non-OU, non-Texas stuff.
Les Miles looks like he sounds like he had a stroke or something. I don't want to say it like that, but he's a step slower. He's not the quick-witted, fun Les of old.
I use kind of the same analogy. I said I hate saying that. I'm not trying to make light of this, but he does, his speech patterns just kind of suggest something. He had some kind of an episode or something.
And then when you add in the thing with Puka Williams, you knew it'd be uncomfortable to begin with, and then it just was even worse because of the way he was answering the questions. It took so long for him to formulate his thoughts, so it was just a bad first impression for someone that you thought would probably knock it out of the park because he's done these so many times in the past.
Never that well, though. Even when he was, I don't know. I just kind of came out of.
He didn't feel like a character. He didn't feel like a character. He just felt like a prisoner almost.
I kind of came out of that. Les Miles, as soon as he walked off the podium, and kind of just started making his way around, like I thought to myself, "Wow, he's really just doing this to do something. Like he's not. I don't expect him to do anything to improve Kansas's product." Like whatever they have now, the best he can make that team now is the best they're going to be.
I don't even know if you can. I mean, it's kind of a lost cause.
Well, they're going to build. I mean, they're trying to raise a whole bunch of money to actually, build a decent looking stadium.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would just be so shocking if he was really that inept and Jeff Long made that hire. I think a lot of people have a lot of respect for Jeff Long.
Sure.
It just feels like a money grab to me for Les.
Or just getting his name back out there so maybe he can move on to something
I don't
else.
even think he cares about moving on.
He's just done. He just wants something to do, though.
He just wants something to do.
Well, I feel bad for Kansas if that's the case.
I think they've got a absentee head coach. I really do. Other than that, I know a lot of people were impressed with Matt Wells.
Yeah.
Neil Brown had some people that, told me that they thought he was really impressive.
It's funny, you sit there and you listen to all these coaches talk, and it's like, oh, they might be pretty good this year. And then first week of the season, they'll be getting beat at halftime by Marshall or, whoever.
All it does is show you that all those guys are really good at being interviewed.
Sure.
Like Matt Campbell, really good at being interviewed, but he actually is a good coach.
Yeah, no, he is.
I wouldn't imagine. I don't see Tom Herman as a guy that really wins the interview.
You still
unless you just like awkward
face.
Arrogance, if that's your cup of tea. Like he might be the most awkwardly arrogant person I've ever seen.
It's funny that like he says things, and it could come out of Matt Campbell's voice, and he could say the exact same thing, and you'd say, all right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Herman starts saying it, and you immediately think asshole. Like this guy, what's this crook up to right now?
Yeah, his delivery is just not sincere, no matter what he says. He could tell you he just donated $1 million to children's cancer research. You'd be like, man, what a douchebag.
Well, I'd look up at the sky first and think the sky's falling because I know he would never do anything like that.
I can't really say. He might be, I don't know, he probably needs some more years to build up that portfolio.
Probably.
But yeah, if you're going to strip clubs with Zach Smith, you're probably not doing that.
Probably not hanging out at children's hospitals. Just put it that way.
Okay, so it's kind of a wrap on Big 12 Media Days. Got to spend a lot of time with Lincoln Riley. Yes, I know, the Face app for Creed Humphrey. It just confirms what everyone says already. So we're just going to... I'm acknowledging it, and we're moving on. Outside of that, ChampUBBQ coming up when, Bob?
Next weekend.
Oof. So Josh couldn't join us today. That's really my fault. Technical issues. We've reset the network and couldn't get him hooked in from Houston. So we will get that fixed for next week because we'll have to have Josh. We'll have a kind of recruiting spectacular coming up next week as well. So Bob, get ready. Get that voice ready. Get that kid to sleep a little bit more.
I mean, they got 3 2021 in-state offers showing up between Ethan Downs and Kendall Daniels, and you just sort of wondering, AJ Green, if that dominoes start to fall. I don't know what's going to happen so much in terms of 2020. I think that might be something. Don't get your hopes too high. But 2021, there could be some moves being made.
I got to think, starting this weekend, OU's probably going to ramp up their social presence quite a bit.
And the dead period
throughout this week.
The dead period will be over, so now you'll be able to go back doing what they usually do.
But I would imagine they're going to try and build some excitement, going into the start of fall camp and everything like that.
You know what's weird is if for the spring game, you remember they had Austin Stogner and Theo Weiss talking about committing.
Yes.
I wonder if they do that because they've got guys. They've got people like Kenneth Murray, like Jalen Redmond, like Patrick Fields, who weren't commits at the time, but then went to the barbecue. And if they didn't commit right then and there, they committed a little bit after. So I wonder if they do something like that.
And they've been doing a lot of photo shoots with current players, too. So you wonder if maybe they don't do something with the freshmen, the young guys, and throw it out there. Be kind of interesting.
I would imagine they do. This is usually the time of year they're shooting the pregame intro, the everything that you basically see throughout the season as far as graphics is being done right now.
Well, we have seen a Jalen Hurts alone surrounded by cheerleaders, I think, intro being shot.
I did see that, yeah.
I don't think I saw a Tanner Mordecai one.
Well, I mean, we'll play the game if they want, but we know what's happening.
Nobody's playing a game. That's the thing. It's like nobody's like, oh, hold up, give Tanner Mordecai a chance. Nobody's doing that.
No.
I'm just saying, let's not turn it into, the man is trying to keep us down by not telling us what's really going on. That's not what's going on. They're just going through the process of naming a starting quarterback.
If you're doing that, you need to get your mouse out. You need to hit the corner
to me, that's
of your
more
computer.
To me, that's
and
more
stop
in the
watching
media.
Alex Jones.
No, to me, that's more people in the media, and I don't understand it. It's like, do you cover football? Do you understand how things work?
The only thing I get is if you're a national writer, this might be the only time you see the Sooners for a long time.
Get on a plane and come to Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
If you really need the story.
A lot of those people are not going to do that. So they needed this Monday in Arlington to be the day they get everything they need for Jalen Hurts features heading into the season, and Lincoln didn't give them that, so they're going to gripe about it.
Shit. If you're a national writer, you'll be able to get them on the phone anytime you want. So,
well, if you were for ESPN.
There's no doubt about that.
Well, that's how it works when you pay the big money.
See that small little opening closing to the local media. Okay, it's gone now.
All right, that's going to do it for us this week. Appreciate you guys being a part of it, and we'll be back again next week. It'll be the big preview show for the ChampUBBQ. Bob, try and get some sleep.
I'm trying. I'm failing.
Is it getting any better?
This week threw another curve, so no, but I feel like if we can get over this hump, then maybe start getting into a pattern. I did get a projectile spin on this week,
nice.
And I did get peed on twice.
Nice. So that was like during change, just you get peed on?
Actually, well, one of them was. The second one was because of the diaper rash. We aired her out, and she just let it flow all over my shirt yesterday.
Sometimes that happens, and I don't even have an infant.
All right, on that end, we will see you guys next week. Thanks for listening, and we will be back for more coming up next week, right here on the Unofficial 40 from SoonersGroup.com podcasts.